Hi Krafty Friends, this is Jen from Katahdin Krafts, and welcome back to the ScrapbookPal channel. Today I'm bringing you this sweet holiday card featuring Altenew's Holiday Flower and Seasons Tweetings. I love both of these stamp sets and they have a boatload of possibilities. This is Holiday Flower and you can see all the sentiments. I like them all. May your heart be filled with all the joys of the season. Make a wish. May your days be merry and bright. I chose to use peace, love, and joy today, but all of them are very nice sentiments. And then this was the first layered stamp that I've actually ever tried. It was a lot of fun, and I can see myself doing a lot of these in the future. I did the one cardinal for this particular card, and I will show you how I layered that all together. And then I used Honeybee's Burlap die cut. This is new with their new release, and I love that. I love anything with that old-fashioned-y kind of look. And then Lawn Fawn's Everyday Sentiment banner and some gems from Honeybee Stamp as well. The first thing I did for today's card was stamp it out on Copic friendly paper using Lawn Fawn's Jet Black ink, which is also Copic friendly, so the ink does not smear with the alcohol-based markers. And as you can see, Altenew comes with these nice little flyers or brochures, I guess you could call it, with ideas from the stamps that you're purchasing with the ink colors that they chose. I thought that that was a nice little bonus that you got with them. And now this is a new stamp to me, so I used the palm of my hand and kind of just rubbed on it in order to make it a little bit less tacky, and therefore your ink clings onto your stamp a little bit better. And now the great thing about the Misty is with all of these detailed stamps, you can do it several times until you get all those details as clear and crisp as you would like. And so as you can see, I probably did it about 3 times. And now we're on to our cardinal. So for this, I also cut some scrap paper into my panel size, which was 4 by 5 1/4, because I wanted to be able to practice on the layering. So the first thing I did though was just stamp out the base because that's pretty straightforward. And I also knew when I was taking the time to layer the dies that I wanted to mass produce them, just to make it worth my while, I guess, get more for your buck or more bang for your buck. So what I did was stamped out one and then I would flip the paper and get a second image on that. And I did that for 4 separate panels. And as you can see, again, using a Misty, you can just get it right into that edge each time and make sure everything is going to be lined up, because you are going to be lining up one stamp at a time and stamping it out the 8 times that I chose, plus a couple of practice times in between. And this is one of my practice pieces of paper, so now I'm lining up that wing. And sometimes I was off and I had to make adjustments, so I did several of those before I started going, just to make sure I had enough. And the first ink that I used was Barn Door Distress ink, and then for the wing, I'm using Distressed ink in Fire Brick. And there, and again, I did it a couple times on each image. Sometimes with Distress ink, you do need to do a little bit more. It just has a different consistency. And now that I have the wing in place, I'm practicing again with the black face, which I'm using Lawn Fawn's Jet Black ink again. And now that when I get that lined up on my practice, I go ahead and stamp out all my birds. And now I'm using Fire Brick again for the beak. And remember, I'm doing this 8 separate times and practicing the lineup right in between, but then as soon as I get it lined up the way I want it, I can just put each piece back into place and everything is perfectly lined. So mass producing these is super easy. And now I decided to hand stamp some of the very fine images, like the eyeball, and it wasn't too hard. I just had to take my time. I did practice on one of the practice sheets first, just to see how it went, and not so bad. As you can see, that was pretty simple. And now they have a nice little thin stamp image for the beak area to make the mouth, which I thought was a amazing detail. And so I just stamped that directly as well, but I practiced first. But look at this. This just really makes the cardinal come alive. And now there you have it. I have all 8 of my cardinals complete. And like I said, once you get going, these are easy to mass produce, so you could make several holiday cards at one sitting. Okay, and now moving on to our holiday flower, which I had already previously stamped. I'm going to color this in with Copic markers. So I'm starting with R24, and I'm going to lay down a layer of this on all of the red parts of the poinsettia. And I'm just making, the stamp is so detailed that you don't have to do a whole lot of blending because there's so many details already etched into the stamp, which makes it really easy and nice. And so now I'm just putting a little bit of depth in there with some R27. I'm going in the centers and then underneath each of those smaller leaves or petals, just to make a little bit of dimension and depth. And I'm going to just blend all that back out with R17. So very, very simple coloring. Again, if you wanted to mass produce these cards, it would be easy. So this is YG61, and this is my lightest tone that I'm using on these leaves. And so right now I'm literally going in and shadow mapping where all my shadows are going to be. So I start with that lightest tone, then I'm going in again on top of that with my medium tone, and then I'll go in a third time on top of that with my darkest tone. So the medium is YG63, and then the darkest is YG67. And then what I'm going to do is go back in again with YG63 and then finish it off with YG61. And this just helps you get a blend because the more saturated your paper gets, the easier you can get the ink to blend together. And you can see it happening as I'm coloring. You can see it starting to blend on the edges, and so that there's not so much contrast between each color. And I just keep working on that until it's all the way I like it. So sometimes I have to put in a little bit more medium tone in order to pull it out to that lighter, and so on. So I just keep working that until I get the effect that I want. And now I'm applying some gold stickles to the middle of my flowers, which I have been pulling out stickles more and more lately. I'm loving them again. Not so sure why I forgot about them, but I'm happy that they're back in my life. So I set that aside to dry, and then I pulled out the tree branch that comes with the set, and I used my vintage photo distress ink to stamp this image. And I just stamped it again a couple times with the Misty. Love the Misty. And now I used some craft paper and cut out that burlap die. And look at all the details in this. I love it. So I just popped all those centers out and then used vintage photo again and went around the edges and just gave that a little bit of contrast. Next, I'm working on my card base, which is a typical A2 size, which is 8.5 by 5.5, and then you score it at the 4 1/4. And what I'm doing is I wanted this to match perfectly with my stamped image, so I went around with R24 around those edges to get that nice same red. And then for my card panel, I actually tried several different panels in several different colors, and then I decided on Stormy Sky and Tumbled Glass Distress inks mixed together. I thought that that was a nice combination for a nice wintry sky. And I'm just testing it all out. Like I said, I did about 4 different panels, but this was my favorite. And now I'm just going to start assembling my card. First with the sentiment. So I cut this out, Peace, Love, and Joy, with the sentiment banner from Fawn. And I wanted the little flag, and I thought that I would trim it right there on the end, but then I decided I really wanted it centered on the card, and so I wanted that flagged end to be the same. So I just lined up the sentiment banner again, the die, and you can see I kind of pushed it into the channels. I'm trying to show you how I pushed it in and got it like kind of clicked in there. And then I just used purple tape and stuck that down. And I just eyed it from the end to end and got it as close as I thought that I could from my naked eye. And then just cut that out. And then I chose to keep that white today because I thought that would be a nice contrast to everything else going on in that card. And now it's time to glue everything together. So I'm first going to put my panel down. My card panel is 4 by 5 1/4, which then gives you 1/8 of an inch all around the edge. And now I'm using my art glitter glue with that nice precision tip in order to get into all those fine details on this burlap die. And then just pressing that down and just wiping off the excess glue with my fingertip. And now that my stickles is all nice and dry, so I'm going to apply the glue to the back of my flower and push those down. And now I have to do this kind of relatively fast because I have to slide that twig or the branch underneath the flower. And here I was playing with the positioning, and at first I thought, well, maybe that would be kind of fun to put that branch, that smaller branch, on top of the leaf. But eventually I tuck it back under. I didn't really care for that. So now I wanted to add a little bit more sparkle, so I grabbed my clear Wink of Stella pen, another one of my favorites, and I added a generous amount to my flowers. I think I went 2 layers. Just colored that right on. And now I'm adding my bird. And I didn't mention, I went back and put the feet on all of my birds. I didn't show that on my video, but they do all have their little feet. So for some dimension to my card, I used foam dots for my bird and also for my sentiment. So both of those are popped up. And the foam tape or the foam dots are very forgiving, so you can move those around a little bit and get them centered. And our card is almost complete, but I thought a couple of gems from Honeybee Stamps Farmhouse set would be appropriate and add just a little bit more sparkle. So I selected 3 gold gems and stuck those down onto the card. And there we have it. Thank you so much for stopping in and crafting with me today on the ScrapbookPal channel. You can get all of these products at their online store. They have a great selection and very fast shipping. Make sure you check out their channel for lots of inspiration from their very talented team, and check out their blog, and have a great holiday season, everybody. I will see you again soon. Thank you. Take care. Happy crafting.